Hello, everyone. Welcome to Philly Sports Now, a Philly fan podcast. My name is Zach. With me is Andrew, and we're here to talk all things Philly sports. Now that the injury report has come out for Wednesday, January 22nd, we are here to give you your update. This podcast will be going up Friday, January 24th. But before we get into that, I wanted to give a quick thank you to the listeners. If you haven't already, please follow us on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube. One or the other, both great. Please do it. And I'd like to make the official announcement that we've been teasing for the past couple episodes, maybe the past week, which is that Philly Sports Now is officially part of the Fan First Sports Network. We have partnered with them moving forward. It's a partnership, new opportunity for Philly Sports Now. We're very excited on this podcast. We'd like to thank you guys, the listeners, for giving us essentially the credit that got us here. And as we continue to grow, we're just going to keep doing what we love, which is talking all things Philly sports. Andrew, I don't know if you want to say anything before we move on to the actual sports talk.
Yeah, no, I echo what you said. I mean, yeah, thanks to all the listeners. I mean, we couldn't have got here without the listens and the help from everyone else as well. I mean, you guys listening is what takes us to that next level. And yeah, thank you very much, and look forward to continue at it.
So, moment of silence and thanks. And we're back. So, we're here to talk specifically. We're going into the NFC Championship game. Sunday, 3 o'clock, the Philadelphia Eagles will be hosting the championship game against Washington Commanders, the worst named team in the NFL, maybe all sports. But as the Eagles go to their 8th, I believe, championship in the past 2 decades, I am very excited to see what comes next. I believe I said this last episode, but I am nervous for this game. I went into both the last 2 games with a pretty high expectation of moving on. The championship was always I knew we were going to get to the NFC Championship. The Eagles were going to get to the NFC Championship. Here they are, and I thought there was a chance of losing there against the Lions. Washington, just out of nowhere, blew out all expectations and beat the living shit out of the Detroit Lions. And now we have an NFC East matchup in the NFC Championship, in the NFC Championship. So, that all being said, I am just beyond excited for this game. I think it's crazy that Jaden Daniels, who I definitely teased earlier this year as, all right, good job, get to the playoffs and, then sit down, which is still kind of how I feel about the guy. But, he is setting himself up to be a generational quarterback. And it's going to be a big game. I think there's a lot that goes into this game. I think the fact that the Eagles are home is obviously huge. That you get the 3-point spread favorites for that. I think the fact that Jalen Hurts and a lot of this Eagles team has experience is huge. It's nothing new. But then in the other side of that, I think the Washington Commanders are playing with free money. They have zero expectations. They have gone farther than they have in, I think, 30 years, something like that. It's all whatever happens. They couldn't be happier to be where they are. And it's a bit of a scary thing, because when you go in with that just loose cannon mentality and you have nothing to lose, I mean, that's when you're the biggest threat. So I think it's possible to lose this game. I don't think the Eagles do. I do think the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. However, I think there's more of a chance, as it should be in the championship, but I think this is actually the highest possible loss the Eagles have in the playoff matchups.
Yeah, I think with a lot of it has to do with the way, the season ended, in terms of, you dropped that game to Washington, then you see Washington knock off the Lions. I think that's sitting in a lot of people's heads coming into this game. Rightfully so. I mean, obviously they knocked off the number 1 team in the NFC, number 2 team overall in the NFL record-wise. So I think, yeah, there's obviously a lot being said there. And I think as the season continues to go, you'll see what happens there in the NFC Championship game. I think the Eagles will be ready. I think the Eagles are up for the task. And like you said, yeah, Washington's coming in playing with house money and everything. But I think in I think in the end, um, we've been here before. We've seen it before. 2 years ago, I mean, Hurts took us to the Super Bowl, and they got the young crew coming in, obviously in Daniels and seeing what he can do as the rookie to see if he can still keep making his rookie year special. And we'll see what he's able to do this weekend. But I think it's gonna be a battle. I think it's gonna be a lot like we've seen these past 2 weeks in the playoffs. I think it's gonna be a lot like we've seen in the regular season against this Washington team, and it's gonna be a fight to the end. Both teams coming in a little banged up from last weekend and from the end of the regular season. So I think, yeah, all around, both teams are coming in with a lot to prove and a lot to keep their season going.
Yeah, I definitely think I'll just talk about it. The teams are coming in, and again, this is one of those things I look at it, and statistically, I'm like, the Eagles should be the winners. We are the better team, better roster, all this stuff. But in this era of silver medal Philly sports, it feels like I think that's something we've seen very recently. We've seen Eagles lose when they were the better team. We've seen Phillies lose when they were the better team. We've seen the Sixers lose when they were the better team. And that's the kind of random matchup that has me a little nervous for this game. Now, going into this game, we already talked about, obviously, the key takeaway with Washington is Jaden Daniels. He's the stud. He's a rookie. Like, it's crazy. But I wanted to specifically talk just the playoff appearances, the last two games for both quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels playing better than Jalen Hurts, and Daniels has a 116 average QB rating right now, while Hurts having a 101 average rating. It's a little scary. One of the things I really kind of had a jaw-dropping moment for looking at was the sacks. I know we talked about that big with the Rams post-game show, but Hurts taking 7 sacks this last game was atrocious, but he also took 2 sacks in the game against Green Bay. Jaden Daniels has taken 1 sack so far in the playoffs. This kid is something they keep talking about. He's fast. He has a fast reflex, fast reaction time. He is fast. And while Jalen Hurts, he might be the guy that can squat 600 pounds when he's healthy, but like Jaden Daniels, his reflexes are just so lightning McQueen fast. It's crazy to see. And it is kind of scary right now. I think he's the better quarterback. Now, I think Hurts is surrounded with better personnel, like, of course, Saquon Barkley, and you have the greatest running back in the league in history, possibly. Like, what is a major weapon factor? But when it's just the two of them side by side, right now, Jaden Daniels looks a little better.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think they both have proven a lot through the playoffs, and I think, well, yes, Daniels, yeah, he's not taking the sacks. He's able to scramble. He reads the pocket very well, and that's the one area, yeah, you want to see Hurts get better at. But my thing here is it's going to come down to what we've seen from Hurts overall, and that's he continues to make the right decisions. He continues to take care of the ball, not to not create turnovers. And my apologies to my dog in the background having fun. With that being said, I think it's going to come down to making the right decisions. I think a big loss for Washington is them losing their big offensive lineman for a torn ACL. So I expect Jalen Carter to come out just like he has been the last few games and attack the pass rush very well, create pressure on Daniels, and that's going to be the key: is get to him quick, force him into decisions, and make him turn the ball over, and make sure you can contain him. Obviously, it's easier said than done. And with losing to Kobe Dean 2 weeks ago to the Packers, it's going to be tough. Obviously, a lot's on Burks this week. Then obviously, if they mix in a couple packages with Trotter, it's going to be big on those guys to step in. Obviously, we full faith in Zach Bond and everything with the year he's had. But that's the big thing for me is you got to be able to contain his running game and force him to throw the ball and keep his legs at minimum away from scrambling. And that's to me the recipe here to force him into some trouble and maybe make some rookie mistakes.
Let's look, since we're going into some injury talk, let's look at the Philadelphia Eagles injury report for Wednesday, this 22nd. And I think it's a big one to look at because it usually gives a little indication of what's going on. And, the press conference, the interviews, all that stuff, they're all just like, yeah, everyone's fine, which, don't believe. I don't know why you would believe it. Again, Hurts got sacked 7 times. He's not fine. Even if he's just got a bruised rib or something, he's not okay. Like, he's
He
not 100%.
couldn't move when he got the safety. Like, it wasn't even the sacks he took. The safety, he couldn't get out of the pocket because he had just put the brace on.
So, I did not participate in practice today. Dallas Goedert and Cam Jurgens, they were the only did not participate. I did not expect either of those to did not participate. Is that something that we should be concerned about, Andrew? And then kind of brief, because I want to go into the others as well.
No, I don't think it should be. I think, Nick Sirianni loves the rest of the guys, and with Goddard having the injuries throughout the regular season, to me at least, it's not that surprising. Today's not really a hard practice. I think Thursday is their big practice day, so we'll see if they practice tomorrow. And if they don't practice tomorrow at all, I think that's when it might become a little concerning. But no, I think today is just a normal rest day for some of the guys.
And the thing that I think is more telling, which goes into what we talked about, is the limited participation. In limited participation, we have A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, and Quinyon Mitchell. So first things first, I think it's great to see Quinyon Mitchell is limited participation. Because, yes, that does mean I think he's going to play. Like, I think we can officially say, like, he is playing, which is great. I'm glad to see that he is not out. However, key thing here is all 3 of those guys being on this list. I know A.J. Brown also listed for rest and clearly needs it. However, I think those 3 players, key players, being on the limited participation, I think it's clear they're, and I know I've already said it, but not 100%. And this is what we have to look at when we look at our kind of comparison and we get ready for this game is how good of a shape are we in? Well, unfortunately, A.J. Brown, your main weapon on the receiving end, is banged up. It is his knee. Now, I did hear someone today talking about how A.J. Brown's big issue was the dropped passes, which Andrew talked about, and I know that is a legitimate issue, is he had too many drop passes. If any drop passes for A.J. Brown is too many. And the thing that was mentioned today that I heard was that, A.J. Brown was able to get to where he needed to be, which if his issue is his knee, the injury doesn't really play a factor. That's not wrong, right? Like, at the end of the day, if I'm where I'm supposed to be to catch the ball, my knee did the job, right? It got me where I needed to be. However, if anyone is an actual athlete, I'm sure they could tell you that being injured anywhere on your body probably going to affect the rest of your play style. And I say it in kind of this goofy way because, like, I just think look, and again, I've said this before, but I love A.J. Brown. I think he is a absolutely screwy guy, very much wide receiver mentality. And those guys, they're all drama queens. They are. But, like, A.J. Brown puts his money where his mouth is. Like, he shows up. And I just have a hard time believing that he's just not playing. And whether it's his injury is affecting his whole body, whether it's, I don't want to say it's the yips, but drop passes are kind of weird. So I don't know. I still think there's something going on with A.J. Brown. And I personally, as long as there's no snow, am looking for a breakthrough game on his part this Sunday.
Hey, he's due for one. I mean, these first 2 playoff games have not been like the normal A.J. Brown. I don't think that's only snow. I think it's actually supposed to be on the fairly warmer side for Philadelphia in January. I think I saw low 40s. So, real quick, it's funny that she did not use the toy the entire time you talked. I went to talk.
It's literally anyway. You're talking, so let me make noises.
But no, I think with A.J. Brown, I think like you said, I think obviously if it's the smallest injury, he's probably he feels it. I mean, think about it. That especially the one he goes for the touchdown. Yeah, while it's not his hands or his arms that are hurting, he probably, if it's his knee, the second he takes that leap, right, to get the ball, I'm sure he's feeling that go through his knee, right? If it's not fully 100%. So that might, I mean, like you said, it probably does affect him a little bit. So, I mean, I think on top of the snow and the wet weather, it probably did factor into what happened. So hopefully some rest this week and another game at it is going to be big for him, and hopefully we can get him out there and ready to go Sunday. But yeah, I'm expecting a big game from him coming up soon, whether it's this week or hopefully get to the Super Bowl and you get a big one from him. But I can't imagine A.J. Brown keep being contained here shortly.
Now, I know you mentioned earlier, Andrew, some key players on the defensive side, but I'm going to go into that again because, I mean, the only other injury we were going to talk about, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts. We've already talked about, he's taking the sacks. We've talked. He's not. He's busted up. He is giving it his all, and I think Jalen Hurts is going to keep being Jalen Hurts. He's going to keep running the ball. He's going to keep making choice. Like I hope he has a smarter game, because I definitely wouldn't blame all of the sacks on the offensive line by any means. I just kind of would tend to lean towards 50% Hurts, 50% the line. But yeah, I need Hurts to have a more sports intelligent game this Sunday, because if we want to keep him, in shape enough to get to a Super Bowl, he's got to do better. But let's go to the defensive side of the game.
Can I say something real quick before we go to defense side?
Absolutely.
One thing, I don't know if you got to hear any of his press conference or saw the quotes, but his quote was a little concerning to me, at least. And I can only take words so much from some of these guys, and maybe they're trying to play the mind games in Washington. But he said, and obviously they're asking him how his progression is and if he'll be ready. And basically he said, yeah, I'm absolutely going to play. And then credit to, sorry, I forget who the reporter is, kind of followed up with, well, when you say you could play, what kind of play, like your normal game, like how much can you run? And, he mentioned how he's progressing fine, but he didn't comment and kind of pushed off how much he's going to be able to be his normal self and how much he's going to be able to do his running like he usually does in his run game parts. So that's a little concerning if, they're going to keep him contained in the pocket, and and you'll be able to see kind of early in the game, obviously, on how much he's going to be able to run. But I mean, that's if he's not fully 100% in the run part of his game, that's when you kind of contain this offense a little bit. And you saw it when he left the game against Washington and it turned into a non-running style. That's kind of when Washington was able to stop Barkley a little bit. So if he can't run like he usually does, this could get a little dicey.
I think the biggest concern is that it's crazy because they were talking about it, Collinsworth, and I forget who hosts with Collinsworth for the Rams matchup. My two least favorite announcers. I've said it once, I'll say it again. They're my two least favorite NFL commentators. But they commented how Hurts has a lot of time in the pocket. And it's true. Like, that's how good the Eagles' offensive line is. It's how good blocking in the Philadelphia Eagles is. But the issue is, the thing that I feel like we're kind of dancing around is when Hurts spends too much time, that's when he makes mistakes. He's really good when he's thinking fast. When he reacts to the run in the first 2 seconds, when he makes the decision to run for it. I remember there was distinctly a play where the offensive line had a break and Hurts got the ball, and maybe 1.5 seconds later, he runs straight forward for what was probably like a first down, give or take. Again, trying to go off memory here. And when he makes those quick decisions, that's when he looks at his best, whether it's a pass that quick or whether it's moving that quick. However, it's when he has the ball and holds it for 6 or 7 seconds, which he's capable of doing because of how good the line is. But that's when he tends to make mistakes, whether he's not paying attention anymore. Maybe he's getting in his head because he's taking too long. Maybe he's thinking too much in that moment. But it's the situation that is the most concerning, is Hurts having time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It's like you said, he overthinks it and goes from there. And I think that's the big thing, is he's got to get rid of the ball quick. And part of that's going to be on the receivers to get open. Washington's got some good cornerbacks there, so it's going to be on everybody to get open and let him get rid of that ball quick. And especially if he can't run, he's got to be willing to do that.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's all I've really got for Hurts anyway. So if we want to move on to the defense now, I mean, the big thing to talk about here is, I guess I did want to talk. Before we go to defense again, the one, the only Saquon Barkley. What's he going to do in this game? Commanders' run defense. I feel like we keep focusing on the last matchup we had with the Commanders because they literally knocked out Jalen Hurts and the entire team kind of imploded. A backup quarterback goes in, you're thrown off, the game plan changes, all of that. I'm way more confident going into this game with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. I mean, the Commanders' run defense is not great. I don't have here. I have here that they're 30th in the league. Like, again,
they're bottom.
Commanders' run defense is not great. So there is no reason that a combination of Hurts and Barkley running the ball shouldn't be able to just absolutely own this thing. God, the more we're talking about it, the less I think we're gonna lose. Like, I'm getting more excited about winning this game. I truly think I give you the running conversation, which I do want to hear your intake on, I think the biggest reason I think we can lose this game is because it's a division rivalry. Same thing as I thought. I truly stand by. I think the Steelers could have beat the Ravens in the wild card round because they're division rivals. You know that they have, the other team so well. You play them twice a year. You have a better chance than most at outmaneuvering the other team, at outcoaching the other team, because those coaches know each other so well. And I think that's what has me nervous. But anyway, Andrew, if you want to start with Barkley in the run game, maybe go into the whole double team, we'll do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, no, I mean, to your point, let's just take last week's game. Detroit Lions, I mean, they ran for over 200 yards in the game. Their starting running back has 2 touchdowns and 105 yards in the loss. And then Montgomery, who splits carries a little bit from the regular season, at 28 yards. And that's without a running quarterback. So, again, assuming Hurts is good to go and can get some runs in and mix some packages up, I think the Eagles team, as a team, will rush for 200 yards. And Saquon Barkley will have at least 120, if not higher. And I think you see that just with the odds. I don't know if you saw that. I saw this is the largest for a starting running back, the largest over-under for a rushing total for a running back. It's his rushing total set at over under 125. So it's the highest total for a game I was reading.
And that shows you how bad Washington's defense is against it.
No, for sure.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think, obviously, Washington's got some good players. They got Bobby Wagner on the defensive end. Leading that group, they got Lattimore as a cornerback. So they're gonna be solid. Young and some veterans on that team. So they'll be mixing, obviously, a lot up there. The head coach and Dan Quinn is a defensive-minded coach, and he's been around. He was with the Falcons when they went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Patriots. So he's been around for a while. And he's coaching some big games, so they'll be ready to go there defensively. But again, there's just no way of stopping Barkley. I know, obviously, again, when you lost Hurts, they contained him a little bit, but he still had, I think, over 100 yards in that game. And you've seen it. I mean, that's all we heard the last few weeks, from the national media, especially, which is getting old. But how long can the Eagles keep winning with Hurts only throwing 150 and Hurts doing this and Hurts doing that? Because you can't keep doing it through the run. Well, no one's going to stop Barkley. We've been hearing that for how many weeks now in the NFL season. The Eagles can't keep winning like this. Well, the Eagles have won 14 games in the regular season, have won 2 playoff games already. So there's 16 wins now doing it that way throughout the season. Again, what it comes down to, as long as Hurts manages the game well, contains it, doesn't turn the ball over, this team will be fine. This team will get the job done. And I fully expect it to be through the ground, just like it has been. There's no reason to go away from it until it doesn't work.
Before we go into our scores, let's touch on the defense that I keep hinting at. We've got, I feel like a lot of people that were injured are back, like I said, and the only one that's still out is Nakobe Dean, right? So who's, again, out for the season, out for the remainder of the year. We have one of the, if not the best defense in the NFL this year, right now, at this moment. That being said, I still think Jaden Daniels is going to do incredible this Sunday. And I don't think it's anything against the Eagles defense. I think it's just kind of the opposite. I think the Eagles being able to outscore the Washington Commanders is going to be a credit to the Eagles defense keeping the cap on Washington at all.
Yeah, I think Daniels is capable of doing that. No, for sure. I think it's going to come down to, and it's kind of similar to their game plan with Hurts. If you can contain the run part, it forces them to throw the ball. And again, Daniels is good at escaping that. And like you said, our defense, one of the better ones, if not the best in football, especially most improved defense. And it's all going to come down to the health. Obviously, we can sit here and hear the words from Quinyon Mitchell. He's fine. He's ready to go. But, until you take that first hit or you land that first hit on somebody, are you truly ready to go? we've seen it many times where you make that first play and that injury comes back or something like that. So for me, that's what I want to see early on in the game is how ready to go is Quinyon Mitchell. I am very intrigued to see Isaiah Rodgers not on that injury report. We saw him go down with a weird injury late in that game against the Rams. So it is good to see him not on the injury report at all this week. So he should be ready to go because that would have been a concern. You know, you have a 50-50 Mitchell and then Rodgers can't go right now. You're down to your second, third, fourth guys even. So it is good to see Rodgers not on there. He'll be ready to go and attack it from there. Obviously, they got Terry McLaurin on the offensive end as a receivers, which is a very good receiver in this NFL. And obviously, Zach Ertz is playing very well for this Commanders team, and he'll obviously look for I'll call it revenge for the Eagles trading him, and obviously, what better way for him to come back into Lincoln and find a way to get a win? So there's a lot going on this trip or on this game. A lot of storylines there too, but there's no reason why this team can't contain this Washington offense, especially in Philadelphia.
All right, let's wrap it up for the Eagles. Let's do it. Let's hope we have another post-game victory Monday after this. Andrew, your score, do the Eagles cover a -6, and do the Eagles go to Super Bowl 59?
Yeah, so the start you mentioned earlier, right? This line opened up at 3.5, I think it was. It's already up to 6. I think that's very telling. Where people believe these two teams are. I think the Eagles get the job done. I think the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. I'll say, I don't know. I might be being too optimistic, but I'm getting little Eagles Vikings NFC Championship vibes in this game. I think the Eagles contain this game from the start, and they take care of business. I think there's a lot of talk going around. I'm gonna go Eagles 34-17.
Wow. I guess you gave them at least 17 points, huh? I am not as I look. I don't know how Andrew was, but this past Sunday I had a exercise heart rate going on during that Eagles game, and I expect nothing less this Sunday. I'm going to say I think Washington covers the game. I do think the Eagles win. My final score, I have Eagles 30-28. I think this is going to be a long NFC Championship game, but at the end, I gotta say I believe that we will win, and I believe the Eagles are going to go to Super Bowl 59, where I think it's going to be a revenge game against the Kansas City Chiefs. And if it is that way, I'm going to say this right now before we get to Victory Monday, before these games have been decided, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the last time the Eagles went to a Super Bowl with revenge, they won. So let's see that happen again.
Yeah, real quick, I'll throw mine in. I want the revenge game. I want the Chiefs. I want the revenge game. However, I think the Bills finally get it done. Josh Allen's due for one. I think they find a way to upset the Chiefs there, even in Kansas City. I think it'll be Eagles-Bills.
I hate to say that. I hate that because it's funny. If the Eagles play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, I think the country rides with the Eagles. But if the Eagles play the Bills in the Super Bowl, the country is absolutely going to ride with the Bills.
Oh, for sure, no question. But hey, what's new? Everyone's going for Washington. I think everybody's going for Green Bay.
Yeah.
So it's another week as the enemy.
The Philadelphia 76ers coming off their 7th straight loss. Dude, what the shit? First of all, Andrew's watch of the week last week was the Denver Nuggets. He specifically said so you could see Jokic, which did not disappoint because while I don't have it here in front of me, I'm fairly sure Joker got a triple-double like halfway through the third quarter.
Yeah, triple-double without even playing a second in the fourth quarter.
That's what, that just says so much right there, right? Like, Sixers on the 7th straight loss. Obviously lost Andrew's game of the week. And now you have coming up against the Cavs this Friday. I mean, look, the big news for me is not so much the losing streak, which is horrendous. It's not so much the record, which is horrendous, 15-27, by the way. which puts them just, I mean, what are we at? We're just, I don't even know how far outside of Andrew, how far are we out of the playoffs?
3 games.
It just sounds way too close for him. Like, how is that close?
That's what happens when you have 10 of the 15 teams make the playoffs.
My biggest story. So, I watched a little bit of the game last night, but more importantly, I saw the post-game interview with Nick Nurse. Which, Andrew, did you see that interview? Just
No, I didn't see it.
That interview it told me everything about the Sixers right now. That interview, I mean, Nick Nurse, he looked like, first of all, physically looked exhausted. Like he was the one that just played basketball for the last few hours. Like it was his physical game. He looks so defeated. Like he truly can't figure out what to do. And whether it's the lying about the injuries, whether it's just truly putting his all into this. I mean, for anyone new to the podcast, as always, welcome. Thanks for listening. But I have said this Sixers team continues to dance around coaches like Band-Aid solutions. Same with moving players around the league, like Harden to Paul George from Lowry. Like, all of these are Band-Aid solutions. They're all Band-Aid solutions. But Nick Nurse yesterday he gave like a 3-minute straight rant. And I forget if it was even preemptive with a question or if he just straight up started talking. But he just basically starts talking about how he's trying his hardest. Like he's like, he said something along the lines of he doesn't understand what's wrong. Because he was like, yeah, shoot around today. They looked great, which it's always funny too to me. Like you have to consider daily shoot around when you play games as often as the Sixers as an NBA team does. Like daily shoot around is important practice, right? Like that is critical. And he's talking to like he looked like he almost had a light in his eye. Like, yeah, shoot around, they were great. It was a great practice. Like all this stuff. And he's like, I just can't. He was like, I can't figure it out. He was like, I can't do this. And it just like, it hit me how, I mean, he's probably, I don't know if fearing for his job is the right term right now, but like, he's giving it his all, trying to fix this team, but it's just, the team just isn't doing it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not going to take much of what Nurse says for granted, or I'll take it for granted. I mean, first off, I can tell you what's wrong with the team, and I think deep down he knows what's wrong with the team. He just doesn't want to come out and say the guys you have on the court aren't good. You're missing half the team. I mean, Joel Embiid's out, Jerry McCain's out, KJ Martin's out, Caleb Martin's out, Kyle Lowry's out. I mean, I'm watching the Sixers multiple times this week. Sunday after the Eagles game against the Bucks, last night against the Nuggets. I'm watching this lineup. It's like you're back with the process lineup. I mean, no offense to these guys, but we were rolling out a lineup of Jeff Dowtin, Ricky Council, Justin Edwards, Adem Bona, Pete Nance. I mean, that's right there is your problem. I mean, you're going to have, and for him, it's a shame. And I will be on record for saying this. By no means, the Sixers should not even think twice about who the coach should be next year. It should be Nick Nurse.
Agreed.
Nick Nurse is a fantastic coach. It's tough to go out there and deal with the team when you have that many injuries, especially your star in Joel Embiid. So for that, with that being said, I mean, he's not going to come out and say that, right? I don't think he's going to come out and say we're running. I mean, the Sixers got to call up G League players to fill out a roster for these games right now. And you're going up against the best of the best in the league, a guy that's won multiple MVPs, could be on his way to his third MVP in his career, depending on how you look at it. So, I mean, to me, that's the issue right there. I mean, these guys, I mean, they're NBA players, right? Making millions of dollars. They should look fantastic every shoot around. I mean, yeah. They're shooting around in a gym with no defense against them. So I'd hope they look great. If they're not looking great at shoot around, we probably have other issues. So with that, for me, is where it starts. Is this team, and we talked about it, they're at the point in the year you have to say to yourself, what's the realistic chance of going anywhere, right? And I think we know what that answer is. Yes, you might be able to get some guys back here and within the next few weeks. And yes, you might be able to make up 3 games. I'm not going to sit here and say you can't, right? I mean, we've seen it before. Teams can make up 3 games, right? so you can sneak in as the 9-10 spot in the league. Is that what you want, though, at this point? Do you want to sneak in as the 9-10 and go up against the Cavaliers or the Celtics first round of the playoffs? And probably, I think we'd all agree, see what happened to you last year when you survived the playing game, went up against number 2 Knicks, and had the early exit. Because let's be real, if that happens, you're not getting your first round pick. And at this point, obviously, yeah, it's not great to have a tanking roster. But again, when you're rolling out guys that I just said, that's kind of where you're at right now. And your pick's top 6 protected. So you might as well fall to the bottom, hope for the best if that's where you believe you're at this point. And then you get a first round pick guy that can make a difference, a top 5 NBA pick on a rookie contract that you won't have to pay that much to grow with these guys, grow with Jared McCain next year, and then see what happens once Embiid and George, once they're at the point where they got to retire. And the best part about it for me is once these guys get healthy next year, if you do shut it down Embiid and everything, you'll have one last crack at it, right? You have Embiid and George on 4-year deals. They'll be free agents together. You have them long term here for the next 3 years after this year. You will have that one last crack at it, and hopefully, with a long rest, if you do shut down Embiid, he'll finally be right. I mean, and I think that for Nurse is where it's most frustrating. Is you had a guy who, in Embiid, who hurt his leg last year, probably shouldn't have played in the Olympics. Came back from leg surgery pretty quickly to fight and play in the playoffs to get that first round exit where you probably should have, and I know hindsight's 2020, but you probably should have just shut him down last year. So you're kind of a year backloaded from it, where you probably should have shut him down last year, felt the need, go. You knew Harris was coming off the books. You knew other guys were coming off the books. You knew you could have brought in a guy like Paul George, and you could have came into this year healthy and been where I believe you can be at next year, this year. Because again, I've said it too. I love the moves they made the offseason. I love adding Caleb Martin on his deal. I love adding Paul George. Those were the pieces you needed. But the problem is those pieces don't matter when your number one piece can't get on the floor. And I mean, he probably did mess up his leg more in the Olympics. But the problem too, and maybe this is where Nurse is frustrated, as you mentioned, the lying too, this organization is not being upfront with anybody and none of the fans. And that's where it's most frustrating, is we have no idea what this team looks like. They say 10 more days for Embiid. They say that, but it very well, we both know it. It could be the next 2 months, right? So that's the issue at fault here, is they're not being upfront. We don't know where this team lies. So it's tough to get excited about anything right now.
I mean, just to kind of, I have a lot. I was pulling some things up. You know, I always work in the background while we talk and trying to get things going. And I just found something I want to talk about that is making me laugh in a not good way. But for starters, one of the things is we keep talking about, it's not that they should tank. It's that just call it. Just call it a year. Say Embiid is not healthy. He needs the rest. It's not worth forcing him to play in the playoffs. And even if you go in the playoffs, I feel like we're at the point where I don't expect him to play every game, which the whole point is he should be playing every game in the playoffs. He should be playing every game in general, but he should definitely be playing every game in the playoffs, right? So it's just let this go. What is there, 20 games left if I just count it right? Like, give or take, there's about 20 games left in the season. Like, what's crazy is we're this far into the season and they're not going to call it. They're not going to say we're going to rest Embiid the rest of the year. They're never going to do that, which is absurd, and they absolutely need to.
See, real quick, sorry to interrupt. I think they are at the point where I think they kind of are, but they're just not being upfront about it.
Well, but that's my point. Is they need to like just put it away. Just say he's out for the season. Just make that decision. Like, say he like the fans have definitely gotten to the point of not falling for it. Like the whole reason for the team not to call it a year is essentially to trick the fans into buying tickets. However, the fans aren't falling for that because I have here StubHub, a Friday night game against the Cleveland Cavs, who I think the Cavs are decent right now, right?
Number one team in the East.
36-6? Like, holy crap. Yeah, the Cavs are pretty decent. Number one team in the East. Andrew, would you like to guess how much I can get a ticket for there? 2 tickets.
Well, when we played a bad team, I think it was $1. So I'll say the Cavs are good. I'll say $5.
$8. $8. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, you're not tricking the Sixers fan base isn't going to these games. Like, they're not. Like, this is resale. This is people trying to make their money back. This is who's falling for this? No one. I mean, for crying out loud, Anthony Gargano, who is probably the number one Sixers supporter ever in Philadelphia history. I mean, I try to listen to him every day, and I couldn't even tell you the last time they talked about the Sixers. Not really.
No, I mean that's where they're at. There's no, I mean, it's a shame. There's too much. There's too much that should be going on with this team to make them talkable every day. Like, and I mean, yeah, it's a shame. It's really a shame what it's gotten to this season. And like I just mentioned, it should have been taken care of last year. But you decided to try to force Embiid, and then you let him go into the Olympics, and I think it only made things worse for his leg. And I mean, and I'm going on more of a rant, but I mean, you saw it when they tried to fake it. Where we were on here a couple times, and we said, you asked me the question, do we think his foot injury is serious, or do you think it's the wording for a rest game? And I sat here and said, I think it's a rest game. And then, sure enough, a week later, it's not his foot anymore. It's his knee's been swelling again. So like, whatever happened with that foot? So I might not been wrong with the foot thing. It's like his knee again. Like that's what's crazy about it. Like all of a sudden, this knee injury popped back up. Like I don't know. It's tough to believe anything that comes out of any of their mouths.
No.
And you know what? We didn't talk about it with the Eagles Commanders game, so I'll say it now. That's another reason why the Eagles need to beat the Commanders, because I cannot see Joshua Harris sit there celebrating on our field at the link before he gets the Sixers to the NBA Finals.
Oh my God!
I would not be able to watch that.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that one. Oh man, and you know what? Just for that, I think we don't have a game of the week. I think despite I think despite that, we just don't have a Sixers game of the week. Unless
I mean, no offense. What game am I supposed to pick?
That's it. I mean, I have the list here for folks. We do the Andrew Sixers game of the week for anyone who, like me, has a hard time watching every single Sixers game. We try to pick one Sixers game for you to watch every week. And it's just become a very hard thing to do in this season. But upcoming games for the following week, like I said, we have the Cavs on Friday when this podcast drops, Chicago on Saturday against the Bulls, Los Angeles Lakers, Sacramento Kings, Denver Nuggets next Friday. So, I mean, in my personal opinion, I would just say no. I mean, maybe Saturday because there's no football Saturday. So maybe I'll say Chicago for Saturday.
How sad is that, right? You're going into a weekend with the NFC Championship game. You got the number one team in the East coming to town. Like, the Phillies is going to be already like excited for the weekend. Like,
yep.
Friday night should be packed. Then you just mentioned the Lakers are coming into town Tuesday. So you got LeBron James, probably the best player of my lifetime. Obviously, yeah, Jordan. Okay, he played at the end of his career when I was born. But like for sure, like LeBron James, like full career wise, like there should be multiple exciting games for this week. And unfortunately, we're at the point where we got to sit here and say we're not even going to pick one.
I mean, Lakers could bench James and still win. So
for sure.
Like that. So what are we talking about?
That's how sad that is. Like, but yeah. So if I had to say one, I'd say, LeBron's coming to the end of his career. So I'll say Tuesday. Fans should go out and go watch LeBron because who knows how many more years left we have with the King.
See, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say Chicago on Saturday just because there's no football. You're going to try and get yourself excited for Sunday. Go watch them Saturday. Except for real, I'm not going to watch either. I just don't. This Sixers team sucks. And it's not even because of them losing. They just suck as a team, as everything. Just everything. Just screw this team. Anyway, let's move on to the Flyers. Who, by the way, the Philadelphia Flyers are 22-20, baby. Over 500. 22-20-6. Of course, we're going to use those ties. And that actually puts us at 50 points, tied with the New York Rangers, who I believe is the next game, too. So that makes tomorrow night's game, which will be in the past for you and the listener, but tomorrow night's game, Thursday, is a pretty big one because that is who the Flyers are tied with right now. Also, screw you, Pittsburgh Penguins. You're below us.
Yeah. Flyers had a great week. 6-game point streak, their longest point streak of the season. Sitting here, you had a nice, good home win on Tuesday against the Red Wings. Got that one in overtime. A very, very, very good road victory against the New Jersey Devils. And then, you beat the New York Islanders. So, three fantastic wins in a row, and then on top, extend that to the 6-game point streak, and and that's what makes this Flyers team fun. And we talk about it with them being a growing team. You had that little bit of a tough stretch, and they bounced back well. They had that tough stretch at the end of the 2024 calendar year into 2025, and I mean, obviously, it helps getting your starting goalie back in Sam Ersson, and he's playing very well since coming back, and hopefully things continue. But like you said, you got very big game, big. Actually, your next 4 or 5 are big games. You got one with the Rangers, then you get the Islanders, and then you get 2 with the Devils. All teams you're going to be fighting for here down the stretch of the playoffs. So obviously, big to go get some wins now and see what you can do. But yeah, it's a big week ahead for the Flyers.
Now, I know last time we talked, the Columbus. The Blue Jackets was the team that had the last playoff spot that was within reach. Is that still the case, or is it the Rangers now? Where are we at?
The Canadians have jumped that. Well, Canadians, actually, it's a 3-way tie for the 2 wildcard spots. Ottawa Senators, Montreal Canadiens, Boston Bruins all have 52 points. So that's the number you got to get to right now. Then it's the Blue Jackets at 51, and then the Flyers and Rangers at 50. So, yeah, it's going to be a race for 2 spots with about 6 or 7 teams right now, because even the ones behind you, Penguins and Red Wings at 48 and 47 points, are right there in striking distance. So again, you get 1 with the Rangers, you get 2 with the Devils. So a big week here for the Flyers as we get set for this next week.
Yeah, I mean, this is exciting stuff. I'll probably try to watch the Rangers game tomorrow. Again, I know that's going to be in the past for the listener, but yeah, I definitely need to get more into the Flyers right now. It's the best time to watch. This is the year to watch. I just really hope there's some goalie offseason movement is all I'm trying to get at, which we've already talked about before.
Yeah, no, and again, Mitch Cobb had another big point last night. He continues to climb the rookie rankings. So I think he's going to be in a full fight there for Rookie of the Year toward the end of the season.
I was going to ask about him being Rookie of the Year if there's any talks for that.
Yeah, I think it's probably, never too early, but yeah, there's some talks obviously with it, and if as long as he keeps playing the way he is, and if this team can keep rolling, I think that's a big thing too. Late in the year is you kind of always look at where he's got the team. So I think with hopefully this team continues to pick up the pace here and fight for that last playoff spot, and especially if this team can sneak in to the back end of the playoffs, I think for sure you're looking at potentially a Rookie of the Year, if not the Rookie of the Year favorite. And then I think I like everything Danny Briere saying with this team now. I think he's really taking him to the next step, and he was talking about. It's funny, everyone kind of realized where the Flyers are at. They're kind of a year ahead trying to fight for the spot, and you kind of see the holes. And they're already asking him about off-season moves. I was reading, and he's talking about the center position. He's talking about it's kind of funny hearing him talk about it already, but I mean it's cool to hear him talk about it too, because he realizes what this offseason can bring and where this team's at, and you got a very good upcoming rookie system too with some of these early picks we had a year ago in the draft, and we'll see what happens this year. You have some good draft capital from previous trades as well, so this team's set up very good.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, I don't have too much else to say right now. I think we wrap it up here. Thank you everyone for listening to Philly Sports Now, Philly Fan Podcast, again presented by Fan First Sports Network, which we just want to say thank you to them for inviting us into said sports network. You can find us on social media. Everything is in the description. Again, I did not mention it today, but make sure you like or comment. If you comment or reach out to us via social media, we'll be sure to get back to you on the show. We'll give you a shout out.
No, go Birds.
Go Birds.
I will say this last thing, just to throw Phillies in, but how cool would be Eagles Super Bowl, right? Takes us to the 9th, and then spring training starts like the 12th or 13th. Like, what perfect segue that will be into baseball season if the Eagles can get the job done. Like, it's having pitchers and catchers the very next week. Like, that'd be so much fun.
Just riding that high into pitchers and catchers, dude. That'd be so funny. Except it's not, because I forget who just acquired a bunch of people, and it's like, this is the worst time.
The Dodgers, The Dodgers are the new Yankees, basically.
All right, yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Philly Sports Now, Philly Fan Podcast. My name is Zach. That's Andrew. And as always, go Birds. Good night.
Go!